our generation, but the generations that came before us, but lalong-lalo na tayo. Tayo na nagmimina, tayo na nagpuputulin ang lahat o sisirain ang mga kagubatan, napopollute ang ating mga karagatan at mga iba't ibang river systems, river basins. Lahat yan, sanhi, nagiging dahilan bakit tayo nagkakaroon ng mga health crisis. Because it begins with the breakdown of our ecology. Next. We have experienced costs. I run in my family corporation 2 ecological resorts in Bukidnon. Pero alam natin, turismo, negosyo, trabaho, kabuhayan, lahat, ang taas ng costs. Kasi nawalan tayo eh. Costs have to do with what is expended, not what is gained. So nawalan tayo during COVID. At ito ay manifested sa mga hindi lang namatay, kung hindi yung mga nagastos natin. We wasted so much money, resources, lives even. In the millions, there were over 6-7 million deaths worldwide, and the Philippines had almost 80,000 deaths related directly to COVID. Next. Crisis. The crisis has to do with leadership. Leadership. And because we're not blaming any leader, this is from the World Health Organization. And you realize that our former president is in this 6 photographs of different leaders of the world. But you will see now, this is not to be biased, this is not to make any kind of criticism. Pero ito ay mga nakikita natin na datos sa World Health Organization na ang mga lalaki na mga presidente at leaders, kakaiba yung response sa mga babae at mga, so may gender dimension ang COVID. May gender dimension ang leadership. Kasi Donald Trump, Rodrigo Duterte, and Jair Bolsonaro, the United States, the Philippines, and Brazil, ang approach ng mga lalaki na leader during COVID-19 was strong, brutal, malalaki. Di ba may gender to na dimension? Ha? Wala akong, I am not trying to be political here in any way, putting blame o bahira ng kinsino man. Let's be objective lang. In the United States, the Philippines, and in Brazil, led by male leaders, the responses were more militaristic. Hulihin, dakpin, ikulong. When you look at the women leaders, Angela Merkel of Germany, Ng Sing-Win of Taiwan, and Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand, what did they do differently as women leaders? They treated the pandemic as a health crisis. They did not deal with it like a police state. They dealt with it like mothers would address a crisis affecting their children. And so the cases of COVID in Germany, in Taiwan, and in New Zealand were the lowest. Below 100 ang deaths. Whereas in Brazil, the US, and even the Philippines, in the thousands. We're not blaming it on a single leader. But we know that leaders set the tone. If you set the tone of compassion and welfare of all, if you set the tone that everyone is included in the processes of seeking solutions, you are more like these 3 women leaders. Pero kung minsan, hindi naman sa nilalahat natin, At hindi naman sinasabi natin na lahat may kamalian. Pero true, may kakulangan kung ang mga lalaki na mga leader ay siyang para bang ang response brusko. And we must understand that leadership is about like the work that you do in social welfare and development. It is no surprise that over 60-70% of our social welfare and development officers in this country are women and are mothers. And we must applaud the women and mothers in our midst. Di ba po? Hindi natin sinasabi na mga lalaki kukulang pero talagang may gender yan eh. Iba kapag nanay, kapag iniintindi parang tahanan, kesa sa ipulis mo na yan, hulihin mo na yan. Iba sa ano kaya kung ito mga anak natin, paano natin to mas maaaruga at maipagtatanggol. Anyway, I won't go into details here. Let's go next. Capacities. Ano din ang mga institutional, yung mga ahensya natin, DSWD, DOST, Department of Health, Department of Education, local government, environment, education, lahat-lahat ito ay institusyon ng pamahalaan. Ngunit gumagalaw ito hindi lamang dahil may mga panuntunan, may mga batas, may mga Republic Act. Nabubuhay ang mga institusyon dahil sa mga tao, dahil sa mga kawani, kagaya ninyo na nandoon. When it is hard and when it is tough, you keep going because that is your commitment kahit konti lang ang sweldo o napupuyat kayo o kayo ang nilalapitan mga nang nasasalanta at napipinsala, kayo ang frontliner ng mga institusyon gaya ng DSWD. Is that correct? And so you must take a bow and be proud of that. Because our capacities to respond to COVID, to pandemics, our capacities to respond to climate change have to do fundamentally with the people on the ground, on the front line, on the trenches. And that is the kind of people that makes the Republic strong. Kasi kung hindi kayo kikilos at gagalaw na may karaniwan at nakaakibat yung compassion, yung empathy, yung may awa at malasakit sa bawat isang kapwa Pilipino, hindi tayo lalayo. You can have all the Republic Acts. You can have all the professional regulatory requirements. You can have all the licenses and you can follow all the regulations that emanate from our institutions. But until and unless it comes from the very spirit of service and unless it comes from your sense of being Filipino, walang mangyayari sa ating mga capacities. Hindi natin mabibigyan ng lunas ang mga krisis at mga hamon na hinaharap natin bilang bansa at bilang mundo. Yes? Next. Kaya meron tayong mga sustainable development goals sa United Nations. Hindi ko na to patatagalan. I'll just walk you through quickly. Next. Development and sustainable development simply means, can we all read this together? Para meron pong internalization. Can we read this together? Development that meets very good. Sinong makakatagalog nito? Isasalin ninyo. Can you please come up and you will get a special reward from our board? Ang kaunlaran, sige nga, ang kaunlaran na sustainable development ay kaunlaran na nakakamit ang mga pangangailangan ng karaniwang henerasyon na hindi kinokompromiso o kinukuhanan ang mga pangangailangan ng mga darating pang salinlahi. Yes, that is sustainable development. Ang hirap naman na miminahin natin lahat, uubusin ang mga karagatan, uubusin ang mga kabundukan, uubusin ang lahat ng minerals, ipopollute ang lahat ng ang ating mga rivers, ang ating mga bodies of water, ang ating hangin, lupa, aharaw, hangin at tubig. And then what are we left with? We are left with an unsustainable, hindi na sustain na kaunlaran. It is going to be very short term imbis na longer term yung atin pong magagawa para sa darating pa nating mga anak at mga apo at apo sa tuhod. Next. Kaya nga, the highest form of security is ecological. Ulit, lupa, araw, hangin at tubig, ang ekolohiya ng lahat. Next. Ito po, sa gitna ng lahat ay ang tao. Pero hindi ibig sabihin na ang tao ang may kaharian. Tayo, next, lamang ay kabahagi ng ekolohiya. Because there is no economy without ecology. It is the same root word, ekonomiya, ekolohiya. At nanggagaling yan sa ugat o kataga sa Old Greek, which was the basis for Latin, which was the basis for many words in English. And Greek, the word for household is oikos, eco. So therefore, ekonomiya at ekolohiya ay hindi po yan mutually exclusive. Hindi ibig sabihin sisirain natin ang ekolohiya, ang kalikasan, dahil gusto lang natin makamit ang economic development. Hindi naman po pwede nagibain natin ang Mount Apo dahil alam natin na may mga sangkatutak na ginto. Diba? We will not destroy our ecosystems and our forests just because we know that there are minerals like gold. Kasi in the end of the day, in the final analysis, hindi po natin makain ang ginto. Hindi natin makain ang pera. Kailangan natin lahat ng resources na material. Yung salapi, kailangan bilang currency na umandar ang ating mga ekonomiya at kabuhayan. Pero hindi po yan substitute na sisirain natin ang lahat na nagbibigay buhay sa bawat Pilipino at sa bawat nilalang sa mundong ito. Because that is ecology and we belong to the ecology. Correct? Next. The laws of nature, land, air, water, sun, and that is why we say this is very important for social welfare and sustainable development. Hindi lang social welfare and development, kung hindi social welfare and human sustainable development. Kaya ito syllogism, yun bang merong logic? No forests, no watersheds. No watersheds, no water. No water, no rice. No rice, no food. No food. You see, where does it all begin? It begins in the ridges, the mountains. It flows into our rivers, and then the rivers into our reefs. From the mountain of Mount Apo, the highest in the country here in Davao, flowing into the rivers and flowing out to the Davao Gulf, the source of tuna, the source of protein for southern Mindanao and the rest of the country, the richness of our oceans. They begin with a ridge, the river and the reef. They begin with the forests and then the farms and then the fisheries. Ganon po ang ekolohiya. Ganon po ang kailangan nating mabago sa ating mga pananaw. Dahil akala natin ang kaunlaran ay pera at pera lamang. Hindi naman yan masama ang gustuhin ang pera. Sino ba namang ayaw magkaroon ng livelihood, ng pera sa bangko at maging marangya rin ang kabuhayan ng lahat. I'm not saying it's wrong, but what we're saying is that if we do it at the expense of everything that is the source of life, livelihood, and all of what the future generations need, may kamalian yung models natin ng development. Hindi ba po? Next. Kaya nga dito sa kay Pope Francis, siya ang may likha nito. Pope Francis, the first Pope who has made the environment and the protection of the earth and the fight against climate change. This is the first Pope in the history of the Catholic Church or the history of many other religions who has advocated na ang atin pong mundo, hindi tayo ang mga hari. Ang tao ay kaakibat lamang, hindi siya ang nasa tuktok. Kasi kung nandyan siya sa tuktok, ego yan. Self-conceit. Ako ang may karapatan dito. Pwede kong bungkalin ang anumang lupain. Pwede kong patayin ang anumang species. Hanggang naging extinct. The Philippine eagle, which is Mount Apo, is the home, the habitat of the Philippine eagle. And let me get to that in a while. Kasi may isi-share lang ako na mga 3 traits ng Philippine eagle na kailangan makamit din ng Pilipino. Balikan yung katangian ng Philippine eagle, simbolo ng ating lahi, ay maging simbolo rin ng ating pagka-Pilipino. But I'll get to that later. Ego, as if we dominate creation, we dominate ecosystems, we dominate ecology. Sabi ni Pope Francis, hindi po pwede yan dahil lahat tayo ay interconnected. Tayo ay nasa loob ng web of life, hindi sa triangle na tayo akala natin tayo ang lahat ng source ng kapangyarihan. It is wrong to think that we as human beings can dominate any other species or form of life on this earth because ang may kapal, Allah, Panginoon, Ginoo natong tanan, ug unsa man o kung anuman ang atin pong pag-iisip at paniwala, kung anuman ang relihiyon natin, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, we are all part of a greater web of life, and we should always respect every other species that we share this earth with. Yes? Bakit natin iniisip, patayin na yung Philippine eagle, gagawin nating tinola. Papatayin yung leon, yung tigre, yung elepante. What for? To prove that the human being is more dominant than any other species? We all share this earth. That is why biodiversity is essential to maintaining that balance of ecology. And the reason why balikan natin yung COVID, kasi nga, dahil nga kinakain na ng tao dun sa Wuhan, China, yung mga bats, yung panike. Kwaknit manas ato no, sa Bisaya. Gakauno naman, kinakain natin, may transference na yung mga virus na sana ay hindi natin pinakikialaman dahil nasa ecosystems yan. But it's transferring, and that's why it's manifesting in pandemics like COVID-19. Kaya ito po, balikan natin the web of life. Eco, home, the planet home, pamamahay, tahanan, panimalay, that is eco. Ego is akala natin kung sino tayo. Sige nga, kainin mo nga yung ginto. Kainin mo nga yung salapi mo kahit bilyonaryo ka. Wala talaga, di ba? Next. And I will show you this quickly. The Philippine rainforest cover in 1900 was 70%. Look at Mindanao. It was all covered in green. Next, 34% in the 1970s. Halos 2/3 ubos. Next, in 2000, we were down to 3% forest cover. Today, we're down to even less than 1% virgin forest. Look at Mindanao, iilan na lang, Palawan ang natitira na virgin forest. Again, no forest, no watersheds, no water, etc. Next. So that's why in the Sustainable Development Goals, we talk about good health, well-being. I'll rush this because my time is almost up. Next. And we must need responsive health systems, social welfare, and sustainable, ecologically sensitive policies, and your programs that you as DSWD, MSWD officers really need. Mga restorative health, mga science, mas meron tayong pagmananaliksik. Next, mas meron tayong mga pag-address nitong lahat. Next, no, na maiiwasan natin to lahat kasi dahil we are part of this whole WASH. WASH means water and sanitation and health. Clean water. Next, access to clean water is a human right. No, water, access, sanitation, health. Tandaan natin yan. That's also very important in our responses to COVID as well as to climate change. Next, quality education. Alam natin yan. I'll just rush it. We are caretakers, not takers of the bounties of the earth. Tayo ang dapat nagbibigay, hindi yung nagkakabig. Tayo dapat hindi yung nag-i-exploit, kung hindi yung nagsasaayos sa ating mundo. Amen? Next, kaya ito kailangan natin at kailangan natin ang kabataan natin may ganong consciousness. Balikan natin ang ating sustainability ng ating mga communities, ng ating mga barangay, ng ating mga kapamilya at lahat ng kapwa Pilipino because they are really going to have, hindi ko na lang yan isa-isahin, but the point in all of that is kung hindi natin ma-address ito, magkakaroon pa rin tayo ng poverty. Magkakakulang tayo sa resiliency. Maraming risko, vulnerable tayo, at hindi na natin nakakaya ang ating mga capacities. You may breaking point. Next. Kaya ito, this is an example. Baguio City. Beautiful Baguio City, but hindi rin natin maipagkait that they have challenges of sustainability dahil sobra na yung carrying capacity hanggang dun na sa tuktok ng mga bundok ay may mga bahay-bahay na. Kaya vulnerable sa mga landslides at iba't iba pang mga delubyo at climate impacts. Next, in Metro Manila alone, Davao alone, how many metric tons, thousands